So, why does the youngest son ask for his inheritance? The text really doesn't tell us, but let's face it, most of the time when humans act, it doesn't come out of a vacuum. Most of the time when humans act, it comes out of their way of seeing the world. The stories that they've made in their head and told themselves about who they are and who the world is. And in this case, we can imagine our way into the text in a way that the younger son has a story about who he is and who his father is. The younger son, of course, knows he's the younger son. It's obvious. He's got an older brother. And when he's a kid, it doesn't matter. His dad carries him out on his shoulders and shows him the estate in the same way he shows the older brother the estate. And as he gets a little bit older, the father shows them both how to tend the olive trees, how to sow the wheat, when to harvest it, how to swing an axe. But as the younger son ages, he begins to realize from the culture around him that actually none of these olive trees are going to belong to him. So why does it matter that he knows how to tend them? And if his older brother is going to get all the fields of wheat, why should he backbreak sow all of this wheat? And so he begins to develop this story that he's just the younger son. And so he begins to get a little bit lazy about the work. He's got a streak that loves a good time to begin with. So he just decides to lean full on into that and lay at the pond rather than go help out his brother or his dad. He sees the scowls of his brother and knows that his brother doesn't like it. It kind of gives him a little shot of joy, the whole sibling thing. And his father continues to ask him to come to the fields. And what he misses is that his father is inviting him into this, inviting him to come and share the relationship that happens when you're all out there doing the same thing. But that's not the story the son tells himself. The younger son says, my dad, he just wants my free labor. Why should I have to do this? And eventually, he even begins to think, you know what? I bet he loves my older brother better because he seems more responsible and all this land is going to go to him. I bet my dad doesn't even love me as much. So why am I staying here? The property doesn't belong to me. My dad doesn't really love me that much. I should leave. And he begins to daydream about it. Until one day he has a knockdown drag out with the older brother. And he walks to the big house and he throws open the French doors and he says, Dad, I want it now. I want the little portion of the property that's coming to me and I want to go because I'm tired of all this jazz. And he doesn't see the sadness that washes across his dad's face. All he sees is his dad walk over to the accounting. And he doesn't hear his dad saying, are you sure? Like, would there are other ways, what do you want to? And he just says, no, I want it. And to his surprise and to the surprise of his elder brother, his father begins to divide the assets down the middle. And for just a hot second, the younger brother begins to wonder if he's got it wrong. He never expected a kind of equality. Maybe all the invitations to learn about olives, there was more to it than he realized. Maybe if his dad divides the property equally, his dad loves him equally. But then his dad wouldn't divide the property in the first place. His dad would beg him to stay. And so no, it must be true because watch, he's cutting that check. And so the younger brother takes the check. Moment to question his assumptions are gone, and he walks out the door. And he goes into the far country. And it's more money than he thought. Woo-hoo! A little extra off the top. I will buy myself the hottest cloak coming out the haute couture of Gentile territory. I will put that thing on, and now I will find some rooms to rent that are really nice. And you know what, says the younger son? The thing I've wanted most is to belong someplace. And I'm going to create a place where all the people come to me. And so he begins to throw really posh parties with the best Patron and all the things that make for a great party. And then everybody's there. And he watches his account steadily dwindle, but It's kind of nice to just ride the wave of the alcohol so he doesn't really have to remember anything. And, a pill here and there, a little more often, and the money dwindles, and pretty soon it's gone. And all the belonging he thought he'd built, all the friends he thought he had, they drift off, and pretty soon he's pawning that cloak, and he's indenturing himself to a pig farmer, and pretty soon he's a rack of bones. And he's in the fields at night, and he can feel the coarse fabric on his skin, his hips are jutting out, and he's racked by withdrawal. And he thinks that he is gonna die. It's the lowest he's ever been. And he begins to picture his dad's face. His dad who was so kind. And he begins to think about a bunch of memories he wouldn't pay attention to at the time because they didn't fit his story. He sees how maybe all the invitations from his dad were really that his dad loved him deeply and wanted him to be part of what was going on. He realizes that, maybe he did belong on the estate. Maybe that really was it. But then he begins to think about how he's messed up, because boy, has he messed up. All those assets are gone, and look at him. He is a train wreck. How could he possibly go home? But how could he not go home? His father even treated the slaves, the servants, well. And so he devises a plan that he'll go back. And he doesn't know if his father will accept it or not, but it doesn't matter because at least he wouldn't feed pigs and at least he'd have a square meal. And so he starts the long walk home on his sandalless feet. And he decides he'll cut in through the back roads of the farm because then maybe no one will see him, because this is the end of the day. It's pretty embarrassing. But at the same time, he's suffered the greatest humility possible. It's the worst that can happen now. And so he's in the back fields when his dad sees him. And he sees his dad, and for a moment he thinks he should run, but then he realizes it's his dad who's running, who, by the way, he's never seen even take a jog his entire life. And suddenly his dad is there, and he grasps his son in this hug. And the son begins to try to murmur, I've really messed it up. I'm a disaster. There was this alcohol. There were these pigs. And his father is just weeping all over him, saying, but you're home, but you're home, but you're home, but I love you, but I love you, but I love you. But we got to get you out of these clothes, man. It's cold. It's raining. You need a nice robe, and you're my son. Where's that ring? You got to have another one because you're mine, and this is where you belong, and I love you. And the son, for the first time in his life, lets himself just be held by his father, and he realizes after having reached the very bottom that his story was wrong. He does belong in this place, and his father does love him, and he is home. But he's not the only son who has a story, because guess what? Everybody has a story. So the party starts, right? But no one goes and tells the older son. Now, the father dispatched a servant to tell the oldest son, but he didn't go. That's mostly because the older son is not going to be very excited about this course of events and this particular development. Everyone knows that he doesn't really like the younger brother all that much. He was kind of glad when this lazy bag of bones headed off to the far country. And so no one tells him. And part of that's the elder son's own making. He spends like every waking hour until it's dark out in the fields. He works himself to the bone because somewhere along the way, he's just developed the idea that that is what is required of him. When he was little, he went out in the fields and he learned all about the olives and all about the grain and all about the axe, and somehow he knew that it was all going to be his. He would inherit it, that's gift, but somehow he also needed to prove that he was worthy of it, that he could be trusted with it. And so he began to have this framework where he had to prove his worth. He had to swing the axe harder. He had to work longer. He had to just keep trying hard so that his dad would know that he deserved this. And so his whole life becomes this kind of duty. But it slides leads into bitterness because it doesn't really seem like his dad notices it. In fact, his dad keeps asking him for going for a longer lunch or take a day off, and he can't understand that. Why doesn't his dad praise him for his just gritty determination? And why is there no more reward for everything that he does? And does his dad really love him or see anything that he's doing? But there is no more reward because the estate is his inheritance. So he comes up the hill, having missed yet another beautiful sunset, doing labor he didn't really need to be doing, but thought he did, and sees the lights on in the house and jazz music coming out. Why are there saxophonists in my house? He thinks to himself. So he grabs a servant who doesn't really want to be grabbed by the sour brother and says, what? Servant says, your brother came home. Don't ask me any more questions. I'll go get your dad. It's who you really want to talk to about this party thing. So the father comes out, and the older brother by then is in the barn, and he is so enraged, he turns on his dad, and he says, how dare you? How dare you? I have slaved here for you. The resentment just bubbles over and just goes in all directions. I have slaved for you. And that idiot son of yours, the one who burned through all your assets, the one who couldn't even swing an axe right, the one who left you, broke your heart, you throw a party for that, loser? Are you kidding me now? That calf, the one I've been tending, you killed the thing? Thanks, Dad. The robe on his back, that actually belongs to me, so does the gold ring on his finger. What are you doing? The father begins to weep. He says, don't you know? It's been yours all along. You live here with me. I invite you to be with me every day, every day, every day. You never take a break. I wish you would. You could have had a party anytime you wanted because this is yours. You live here. You're the son. I love you too. And I love your brother also. And won't you come to the party? And the elder son just looks at him and stalks off into the darkness, away from his home. And see, both those brothers, they've got a story. And the story isn't right. Not about who they are, not about who the father is. And really, it's the story as much of the prodigal son as it is the dutiful, bitter son, both of them. And the question really is, what stories is it that we tell ourselves? All of us have a story about who we are, a story about whether God loves us or not, a story about whether we're God's beloved child, a story about whether we belong on the estate of God or not. And the question really becomes, how does that story affect us? Because the stories we tell drive the actions that we make. And what is our story about who God is and who we are? And of course, most of the spiritual masters would teach us that really in this story, the prodigal son's the model. Seems like we have to reach the bottom before we ever question our narratives. But I think the Spirit is always asking us to think about the stories we tell ourselves and the narratives we create about who we are. And that the Spirit wants us to speak the truth, which is, you belong to God. You are God's most beloved child, and you belong on the estate of God forever. Is that the story you're telling yourself? And if not, what might need to change to come to the truth?